If you've ever been in basic training or boot camp, and while there you didn't crap for 2 weeks and you wondered to yourself, where does all the crap go? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If this has happened to you in a similar situation, but in the civilian world, go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. Like, comment, do all that good stuff. Make sure you hit that little bell notification icon. That way when I drop more knowledge bombs, you get them. So today, we'll be talking about the CZ P-10C. Brand new handgun from CZ. And a lot of good things about it, a lot of interesting stuff. I did buy this pistol myself, so I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible, even though I spent my own money on it. So, before we get into this, there's been a lot of claims about this, a lot of hype surrounding this handgun, and a lot of detractors as well. Now, one of the large detractors was Larry Vickers. So Larry Vickers of Vickers Tactical does a lot of really good things, and I have a lot of respect for the guy. Now, that being said, I don't agree with his comments that he has on the CZ P-10C, but nonetheless, for the sake of science, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a lot of his claims and we're going to test them out and see how everything works, because Larry Vickers is oftentimes right on quite a few things. So Larry Vickers on May 30th of 2017, not too long ago, stated on m4carbine.net that he got one of the very first production P-10C pistols to do a review on. He went out to shoot it today, and it will be going back to CZ. Now I'm paraphrasing right here. The mag release was a bit stiff with an empty mag in the pistol. With a loaded mag, after firing a few shots, the magazine release was impossible to depress. The only way you could unload the pistol was by shooting it dry. Right, he goes on with some platitudes, and he states, in addition, the pistol has an MSRP of $499. Think about that for a minute. What does that tell you? I know what it tells me. Then he states, lastly, the pistol did not fit into a Raven concealment Glock 19 holster, not even close. So I'm not sure where it fits into in a G19 holster thing came from. Maybe it'll fit in a Safariland 560, but that don't count, as you can stick everything from a high point to a HK Mark 23 in one of those. He also further states that, I gotta admit, once I figured out the sights are aluminum, my interest for the pistol dropped dramatically. CZ will be getting it back and they can keep it. Okay, so a lot of hard talk from Larry Vickers there. So he states that after loading it and firing a few rounds, so it has a 15 round mag, so go ahead and load it. Oh, crap. Larry Vickers says the only way to unload this is to shoot it. I guess I can't. He says that it's impossible to depress the magazine release after firing a few shots, and we have 14 rounds in that magazine, so.
How did this happen? Larry, help.
That's impossible. Okay, in all honesty, the magazine release is fine. We can take it one further, and we can eject from a fully loaded magazine with 15 rounds in it. So say you loaded a magazine, loaded it, and then put an extra round in there, so you had 15 in the mag, 1 in the chamber, so you can still unload it, no problem. It's not impossible. Is it stiffer than the Glock 19? Yes. But is it impossible, as Larry Vickers so eloquently put it? No. Larry Vickers also states that the pistol has an MSRP of $499. What does that tell you? Well, Larry, I bought my Glock 19 under the Blue Label program for $399. So what does that tell you, Larry? Okay, fair enough. He also states that it does not fit into a Raven concealment Glock 19 holster, not even close. He doesn't understand where the it fits in a G19 holster thing came from. Well, that's fair enough. So we'll start with, I have a lot of Glock 19 holsters. I shoot a Glock 19 quite a bit. So we have a T-Rex Arms Ragnarok. So this obviously won't fit. But, okay, well, that's clearly a fluke. We have the Safariland. Which model is this one? 6378 ALS holster, so it locks onto the ejection port of the Glock 19. This fits a Surefire X300. The X300 U works if you pop off the cap. So we'll go ahead and see if this one works. It shouldn't, because okay, well, you know, guys, that's, you know, whatever. So it fit a couple holsters. I mean, Larry Vickers says it doesn't fit every holster. So we have a Galco concealment holster that that fits as well. Oh, I guess it does fit holsters for Glock 19s. It's weird. Yeah, I guess it does. Now, I do want to point out that it does not fit the G-code holsters. So the Incogs, not so much. So I understand where Larry's coming from, but to say that it doesn't fit Glock 19 holsters is a little far-reaching. It definitely fits quite a few. So G-code, not so much. Not really a go on these. But Safariland, T-Rex Arms, Sidecar, Ragnarok, Galco, those are all working for me. So, kind of getting Larry Vickers. Oh, Larry Vickers also states that once he found out it had aluminum sights, interest in the pistol dropped dramatically. Glocks have plastic sights and they work fine. And the aluminum sights on the CZ work great. So, no big deal there. Half the people replace them on their Glock, and the Glocks cost more. So, I don't know what everyone's bitching about when it comes to that. Not a big deal. They're wholly adequate and they do their job well. Been very accurate with them. So, kind of knocking that kind of out of the way, let's talk about some of my impressions on the CZ P-10C. CZ P-10C and the Glock 19. These are kind of my two main go-to handguns, so I kind of wanted to compare them a little bit and contrast them, because a lot of people run Glocks. Now, there's a lot of other great handguns out there. I understand the CZ P07s and Walther PPQs and all that kind of stuff. And I will do a comparison versus those handguns sometime in the future. But for now, we're going to go against the Glock 19, because obviously this was made to compete against the Glock 19 since it does fit in the holster. It's kind of made to replace it for whoever wants to replace it. So, a couple things to start off with. If you notice on the grip angle versus the 19 is a little bit not as steep. So I find that that works for me quite well, because I don't have to camp my hands quite as bit to get my sights on the target, compared to my 19 where I have to drive them down a little bit more. Now, I am more used to the Glock, so I find that I get my sights on the target faster a little bit with the Glock, but obviously I've been shooting the Glock for a long, long time, and I've put tens and tens of thousands of rounds through those. But I find the CZ P-10 points more naturally for me. Another thing I really like about the CZ is the aggressive texturing that they have on the grip. It's actually really similar to the Glock 19 as far as the texturing is concerned. Now, one thing that I like is that the Glock 19 has those finger grooves. The CZ P-10 lacks those finger grooves. That's much improved on the grip. Now, another thing with the Glock 19 is that the grip is a little short, and a lot of people end up undercutting on the trigger guard right here so they can get their finger up a little higher, because otherwise you don't get like that great of a grip purchase on it. Now, compare that to the CZ P-10C, where they kind of took into account that extra space that you need, and it actually fits me perfectly, and I don't need any type of undercut. Whatever kind of design they went with there fits my hand perfectly. Now, if you need a slightly larger grip, there are two other back straps that you can put on there, medium and large, for you guys with monster hands. And that way you can grip this thing fine. So when it comes to the grip on the CZ P-10 and the angle, money, love it. A couple of things kind of going up the pistol here. When it comes to the magazine release, compared to the Glock magazine release on the Gen 4s, which I love, by the way, and I think are great, you can easily just kind of roll your thumb into there and it works fine. Now, compare that to the CZ P-10, you actually have to more depress these inwards versus kind of rolling it forward. So for a lot of people, this is going to be a kind of training thing where you have to get used to rolling, pushing directly in versus how you run it with the Glocks. So is it that big of a deal? No, not really. I do find that the magazine releases are a bit stiffer than the Glock. However, for my friends who have shot these many more rounds than I have, these guys are going on 5, 7, 10K rounds. They've told me that these break in very nicely and end up having a release very similar to the Glock. So that doesn't really concern me so much. So that's the magazine release. Slide stop. Slide stop is interesting. A lot of people have been complaining about the slide stop. Now, a quick note, magazine release and slide stop are both ambidextrous. Does that matter? Not really for me. I'm a right-handed shooter, and unless you're Steven Seagal, you're not going to switch hands really, shooting around different barricades. So it's not that big of a deal, but for left-handed shooters, yeah, sure, it's great. I'm sure it's great. For those left-handed guys, you know, you've been put down by the world for so long with right-handed scissors, so CZ P-10 is your champion. But anyhow, slide stop. It is stiff on a unloaded mag, so that can be noted, but you're not really going to be dropping the slide that much on an unloaded mag for the most part. So once the magazine is loaded and you load it, you'll find that the slide stop is much easier to load. Now, the CZ P-10 does have a auto forward feature. What that means is that if I take that magazine and I slam it in, that slide will automatically drive forward, strip the round, load the gun, all that type of stuff. Cool. Now, here's the thing, is you really got to slam it in. I just don't always want to slam it, you know? Sometimes I want to go in a little slower based on the situation. It's all situationally dependent. So I don't always slam. But if you slam, as you can see right here, it will drop forward. And it loads it for you, no problem, works great. But just as a note, I just end up in practice when I'm using it, I use it just like a Glock, where I have my thumb on the slide release, and as I insert, I just go ahead and depress on it, because I don't always trust that system, because like I said, I don't always slam. You know, sometimes I kind of vary kind of the force with which I put it in. No. Okay. So we have the slide stop. Good stuff. All right, trigger. So this is what everyone has been talking about when it comes to the CZ P-10. So the trigger pull is great, guys. Much improved over the Glock. I have spent a lot of money and spent a lot of time trying to find a good trigger for my Glock that just gives me a great pull. But I find that they're just never that great. If they get really light, they have a lot of problems with light primer strikes and that type of thing. So there's always just problems there. Now, I know there's a lot of great systems out there, like the Haley skimmer trigger and the Ghost products and all that kind of stuff, and they do improve it, but there's nothing that comes close to the CZ P-10's trigger. Now, compared to the Walther PPQ, no, not as light. The Walther PPQ has a ridiculously nice trigger. But I'm going to say that this gets pretty close while being, so they say, incredibly reliable. Not to say that the Walther PPQ is not, but the Walther PPQ has its own things, but great trigger. But anyhow, a couple things I like about it. So with the safety on the trigger, when you depress it, it goes flush with the trigger. Compare that to a Glock, and when you depress it, it never quite goes all the way flat. There's always a little kind of indentation pushing out into your finger, so you can kind of feel it. That's something I've just gotten used to. So having that kind of flat trigger face helps me and makes the trigger pull feel a little bit lighter. Now, besides that, the amount of take up before the trigger breaks, it's about the same. The CZ P-10 feels a little bit smoother. Now, as far as the break is concerned, the CZ P-10 is significantly smoother and lighter. It feels very nice, and it's allowed me to get some really tight, good groupings. So I'm a big fan of the CZ P-10 trigger. Now, reset. So what is a reset? Reset is how far I have to let my finger forward before the trigger resets itself so I can then fire up another round. It's a very short reset. As you can hear right there, it's very tactile. What I mean by that is I can feel it in my finger, and also makes a nice little noise. So that allows me, when I'm firing really quickly, I can just feel when that trigger resets. Now, is it as pronounced as the Glock? No, absolutely not. The Glock has a great reset in it. You can really feel it. But that being said, the Glock does have, you have to move the trigger a little bit further forward before you can feel that reset. So the CZ P-10 does have a shorter reset. Why does it matter? It's easier for follow-on shots, that type of thing. Is everyone going to use it to its fullest potential? Probably not. But for me, it's nice, and I really like it quite a bit. So the trigger is money, in my opinion. The trigger is way, way beyond better. So big fan of it. All right, moving up a little bit further. So takedown. Takedown on the CZ P-10 is just like a Glock. No big deal. Not much to say there. Good takedown, easy, whatever. When it comes to the slide is interesting. So it has forward and rear serrations. So as you can see on my Glock, I have forward and rear serrations as well. However, a thing to note is that Glocks, well, now they're going to be coming to front serrations now, but they originally didn't, and a lot of people got that done. So good on CZ for just having the serrations there right off the bat. That way you don't have to worry about it. So that works out quite well. Okay, moving up to the sights. Sights are good. I don't really have a whole lot of problem with the sights. I'll probably end up changing them at some point because I love changing to Trijicon sights or something like that on my handguns. But they're completely and wholly adequate, and in my opinion, better than the stock Glock sights that come with Glocks. So no big deal there. Very happy with them. There is a loaded chamber indicator on the CZ P-10. It just comes off the ejector. So the ejector is going to kind of bump out a little bit and you can kind of feel it with your finger. It's kind of nice in the dark, whatever, if you're not sure if you're loaded, and you can kind of feel across that. Not that big of a deal for me, but for those of you who love those loaded chamber indicators, then this gun will make you somewhat happy. It's not in the back of the gun like some of the other firearms out there, but still good. When it comes to the barrel, that's where this thing kind of differs a little bit. So it does have full chamber support. Now, is it that big of a deal to have full chamber support on a handgun? You're going to see a lot of arguments saying against or for, but I think it doesn't hurt. Now, it does add a little bit of weight. The CZ P-10 does weigh, I think it's like 2.4 ounces more than the Glock 19. So a little bit more weight there. Now, that being said, the barrel on the CZ P-10 is ridiculous. It is very thick. The chamber is like twice the size of the Glocks. It looks like you could eat the Glock. So kind of a cool little thing. I don't know kind of what the effect is going to be. One would surmise that it will hold up to plus P ammunition very well. Not to say that the Glock doesn't, but just that this thing looks like it's made to eat that kind of stuff for breakfast. So good on it. Now, it does have rifling compared to the polygonal rifling on the Glock. What does that mean? It's going to be easier to shoot lead cast bullets and that type of thing, or unplated bullets, basically. People do with the Glock, I know you shouldn't really. It's nitrided, so good durability, and that kind of sums it up for kind of an initial review when it comes to the CZ P-10. Couple things on shooting. Very smooth, very flat shooting. Compared to the Glock, it feels very similar, and I know I hate to compare everything to a Glock, guys, but it's kind of the go-to for a lot of professionals nowadays. You can't grip the CZ P-10 quite as high as you can on the Glock, but I find that I'm able to grip it high enough to where the recoil is just a non-issue. Recoil is very flat. I have a couple videos coming up here. You'll see how flat it shoots, so it works out quite well. So obviously I've only done around 500 rounds on this thing so far, so not a whole lot. But in that time firing those rounds through the CZ P-10, I can tell it's going to be probably my favorite new pistol. Unless I have like a whole bunch of malfunctions and this thing just ends up breaking on me, I'll change my opinion. But for now, it's hard to go back to my Glock because I love the way this feels. I love the way it shoots. I love the feel of the trigger. Everything about it, I just love. Last thing to note is that CZ mags are much more expensive than Glock mags. They're 35 bucks per pop. That kind of sucks. And it only comes with 2 mags versus 3 mags for Glock. So what the hell, CZ? Just include 3 mags, right? Anyhow, great gun, guys. I'm going to be doing more and more videos on this comparing it to other guns, and also further impressions and reviews as we get further into it. Might be working with some guys on some custom machining as far as getting optics fitted to it and that type of thing, because you know I love my optic equipped handguns. So guys, I hope this was helpful for you. If you're considering buying the CZ P-10, I'm going to tentatively say right now, yes, it is a great handgun, and I would definitely recommend it because it looks cool, guys. And as you know, that's the only thing that matters.